You've probably heard of vampires and shapeshifters in movies. But did you know these creatures have their roots in African mythology? Some of the most chilling stories ever told were born in the heart of Africa. And trust me, they're not what you think. Imagine legends so old they predate colonial history and are still alive today. Stay tuned, because what you're about to discover will make you rethink everything you know about Africa's supernatural history. We're diving into some of the most fascinating and mysterious beliefs that have shaped African cultures for centuries. From blood-sucking creatures to shape-shifting spirits, the myths of Africa are far more than just stories. They reveal deep insights into spirituality, survival, and the power of the supernatural. Get ready to uncover the ancient legends that continue to echo through the heart of Africa today. In African folklore, vampires are not just bloodthirsty creatures hiding in castles. Some of them are cunning and terrifying spirits. For example, in West Africa, there's the Asanbosom, a creature with iron teeth and hooks for feet, said to live in the deep forests, waiting to attack travelers. They're quick, relentless, and their very existence is wrapped in mystery. Then we have the Adze, a shape-shifting creature from the Yu people in Ghana. It transforms into a firefly and seeks out the blood of children. And its existence was so feared that communities performed rituals to keep it at bay. Imagine walking through the thick jungle and you hear the rustling of leaves behind you. You turn around to find nothing. But if you venture deeper into the forest, the Asanbosom might be watching from the trees, waiting for the right moment to strike. A horrific twist? In some cultures, these creatures weren't just believed to prey on the weak. They were blamed for mysterious deaths in remote villages. But vampires aren't the only supernatural beings in African folklore. The continent is rich with shapeshifters, beings who can change their form from human to animal, and sometimes even supernatural creatures. One of the most terrifying figures is the hyena, especially in East Africa. These shapeshifters are believed to transform into hyenas under the cover of night. The hyena, often feared for its scavenging nature, becomes a symbol of the powerful and unpredictable forces of nature. To the people of some regions, encountering a hyena was like challenging the primal forces of the universe itself. In many East African communities, it wasn't uncommon to hear whispers about people suspected of being hyenas, those who could transform at will and cause harm. Some believe these individuals were both feared and respected, for their powers could bring prosperity or disaster. In other parts of Central Africa, you'll hear stories about the Mamba Muntu, a shape-shifting witch capable of transforming into anything from a snake to a lion, often seen as a bringer of both curses and protection. But why were these creatures so deeply feared? The belief in vampires and shapeshifters went beyond mere superstition. It was part of a complex system of spiritual beliefs. These supernatural beings were seen as both a threat and a source of power. Communities would often call upon shamans, spiritual leaders, and healers to ward off these dark forces, performing rituals to protect their families. For example, people would wear amulets, sacrifice animals, or create elaborate protective charms to keep evil spirits and shape-shifting creatures at bay. Picture this. It's late at night and you hear a distant howling. Your grandmother, who knows all too well the dangers lurking in the forest, starts a ritual to protect your family. The fire is stoked, offerings are made to appease the spirits, and the talisman is hung by the door. This wasn't just folklore, it was survival. The fear wasn't just about avoiding the supernatural, it was about maintaining harmony with the spiritual forces believed to be at play. As Africa modernized, many of these beliefs began to fade into the background. With the rise of education and the influence of Western cultures, stories of vampires and shapeshifters started being viewed as mere folklore. Younger generations, raised in urban environments, might never know the true weight of these myths, or the role they played in protecting communities. But here's the twist. These myths didn't just die out. They've transformed, blending into new forms in African horror movies and urban legends, still keeping the fear of the supernatural alive. The ancient belief in the Adze, for instance, has made its way into modern films, where it's no longer just a story passed down through the generations. It's a part of pop culture. Despite the decline in traditional beliefs, these supernatural beings still haunt the modern imagination. In African cinema, shapeshifters and vampires have become a staple in horror films, depicting these ancient fears in a new light. Films like The Ghost and the Darkness, while not strictly accurate, are inspired by the ancient belief in these terrifying creatures. The ongoing fascination with these myths speaks to their deep-rooted significance in African culture, something that can't be easily erased. Even in contemporary cities, you might hear older generations telling stories about encounters with the supernatural. The more things change, the more they stay the same, as these ancient creatures continue to thrive in the dark corners of the modern African psyche. Could these ancient vampire and shapeshifter myths be based on real events? Some historians believe the fear of blood-draining creatures and shape-shifting witches may have been a way to explain epidemics, the spread of disease, or even foreign invaders in the colonial period. Were these myths a form of protection, or just a way to make sense of the unknown? As we've seen, African vampires and shapeshifters aren't just stories. They're reflections of the human need to understand the forces that shape our lives. These myths carry deep spiritual meaning and were a way to protect societies from unseen threats. Whether they're fading away or evolving into new forms, their legacy is undeniable. Perhaps there's more truth to these legends than we might ever fully understand. Let's go even deeper. See, in many pre-colonial societies, supernatural beings weren't always evil. Some vampires or shapeshifters were seen as protectors, guardians of sacred knowledge or ancestral spirits who could punish the wicked. In some cases, entire clans were rumored to descend from shapeshifters, giving them special status within the tribe. So this wasn't just about fear, it was about identity, honor, and spiritual power. For example, the Zulu people tell stories of the Tikoloshi, a dwarf-like being summoned by witches. It's invisible to most, except children and the spiritually gifted. It can bring harm, but under the right command, it can also protect a household. This duality shows how nuanced these beliefs were. Supernatural beings could punish, sure, but they could also heal, warn, and guide. And here's something wild. Many African tribes believe that certain humans could become vampires or shapeshifters, not through a curse, but through spiritual initiation. In the Congo, there were stories of night walkers, individuals said to be able to leave their bodies at night, transform into animals, and roam the spiritual world. Some were feared, but some were respected as powerful spiritual mediators. Now imagine being part of a society where your neighbor might be more than just a farmer. Maybe they're a protector, or a destroyer, or something in between. The lines between natural and supernatural weren't blurred. They were non-existent. And while many of these beliefs faded over time, you'd be surprised how alive they still are. In fact, in some regions of Nigeria and Cameroon, suspected shapeshifters are still accused today. As recently as the early 2000s, people were arrested or even harmed for allegedly transforming into animals and committing crimes. It's real-life myth continuing into modern times. Let's not forget the Bantu-speaking tribes and their belief in life force energy. They believed that certain individuals could manipulate this energy to either shapeshift or become invisible. That's not far from what modern spiritualists and even some scientists explore today in quantum theory or metaphysics. Could it be that ancient Africans were tapping into something real? Something we still haven't fully understood? And if you really zoom out, many of these African supernatural beliefs mirror mythologies from other parts of the world. Vampires in Europe, werewolves in Eastern Europe, skinwalkers in Native American folklore, jinn in the Middle East. But here's the kicker. Many of Africa's stories came before these. Which begs the question, did the world borrow its monsters from Africa? Let's take one final trip down a darker road. In rural parts of Malawi and Mozambique, there have been modern panics over bloodsuckers. People believed to be working with political elites or foreign entities to drain victims of blood for rituals or trade. Entire villages were gripped by fear, mobs formed, and dozens of innocent people were accused or even killed. It's a terrifying reminder of how real these beliefs still are, and how powerfully myth can mix with modern fear. But look closely, and these stories also speak to something deeper. The fear of the unknown. The feeling that someone, somewhere, is controlling the forces we don't understand. Whether it's a creature in the forest, a shapeshifter in your village, or a vampire hiding behind wealth and power. It's all rooted in one universal truth: the human need to explain what we fear. So maybe African vampires and shapeshifters aren't just stories after all. Maybe they're memory, maybe they're metaphors, or maybe, just maybe, they're real forces that once walked among us, and still do. Africa's supernatural history isn't dead, it's just hiding in plain sight. And if you've made it this far, then you're ready for what's next. Because the deeper you go into African history, the more secrets you'll uncover. Want proof that ancient Africans might have discovered electricity? That's in the next video. Click it. You won't believe what they found buried in the Egypt.